This is Robert Kraft, and I'm your host on SNN Network, and we are a proud media sponsor for the upcoming Precious Metal Summit Beaver Creek, being held virtually this year. Joining me right now is Frederick Bell. He is the CEO of Elemental Royalties. It's a publicly traded company. The symbol is ELE on the TSX Venture. Frederick, thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
Very good, thanks. Thank you for having us.
It's great to have you. So let's start with a very quick overview and history, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, Elemental Royalties is a brand new company on the TSX-V. We just listed at the end of July 2020. We have been a private royalty company for about 3 years prior to this. And to date, we have acquired a portfolio of 6 royalties with 5 over operating assets. So very biased towards that. And also with a 90% weighting towards precious metals. So in one sentence, precious metals producing junior royalty company. And I think that gives us the best of both worlds. Gives us all the downside protection, diversified revenue from the outset. We've been a cash flow positive business from day one. It gives us also a really great platform to build the company from. Now we're listed and coming into a new stage of the company's growth.
So what would you say makes the company unique and different compared to your peers? And I asked this with trying to understand better, when did the company, before it went public, when did it technically begin, and how are you able to acquire some of these assets? And like I said, three questions in one, how are they available to you for purchase to bring them into the portfolio?
So the first fundraise and acquisition we did was in February 2017. And that came from, we actually syndicated that first royalty with a mining private equity fund. And all of the 6 royalties we have bought to date have been third-party royalties. So we have bought them not from the operators, but from other owners. And look, that's partly a function of the fact that we had pretty high criteria in terms of the quality of the royalty and the asset and the operators. And I think that for us, the easiest way to access those as a startup royalty company 3 years ago was by going to sourcing third-party royalties where we could pick up, good quality assets that the operators wouldn't need to write a new royalty on. And that really takes us through to today. And I think now coming out of the listing, we raised 24 million Canadian, and we used part of that to repay a debt facility we had. But it puts us in a position where we have more cash than we've ever had in our history. We have more revenue than we've ever had in our history. And for the first time, and as listed companies, everyone's familiar with this, but you really have an ability to use your equity as a currency, which we never had as a private company. And so now we can start to look at transactions, not just in the $5 to $10 million range, but we can start looking at transactions in the 10, 20, $30 million range that we can do. And that really broadens the scope of the opportunities we can look at. And I think 2 other things that come with it are these 3 years being private have given us a really strong track record. We've been able to demonstrate it's not just an idea. We've taken it all the way through to the listing, and we've raised money every time we've done it to date at a higher price than we have before. And I think that the combination now of having a really good concentrated portfolio of high quality producing royalties coming through the listing, it puts us in a great position to be able to execute on some of those opportunities that in some cases we saw while we were private, but maybe they just didn't quite fit for us or it wasn't the right time.
And Frederick, I also have to ask, what's your background? I mean, look, you look like you just graduated high school.
So it's always nice when you hear that. I am just turned 34 actually, just after we listed, and I did history at university. So actually, classic. I'm based in London, and I think it's common. Accidentally found myself in the mining industry, in the mining world, and it was really an experience. I had a few when I was at university, work experiences, and I ended up doing a work experience for a junior AIM exploration company. And I think that sort of got me hooked. And after university, I had an opportunity to go and work with a company, and I ended up in Melbourne for a year with one of the colleagues who's now at Elemental as well. And he's 20 years Spent 20 years at Western Mining as a geologist, and one of the other directors was also there. And so I think once I came back from Australia and that experience, it sort of sucked me into the mining industry. And I had, I think, a good learning experience seeing junior companies. And I think seeing, you know, for somebody in my age profile, for seeing how difficult it has been since the, you know, the cyclical highs, you know, the early mid 2000s, it's been very tough for a lot of exploration companies raising capital. And I think that probably was a big driver for setting up Elemental, because here we were a private cash flowing royalty company from day one. And, you know, there aren't many cash flowing junior exploration companies or smaller companies in the mining sector. So it really differentiates you, and it gives you exposure to the mining sector, but at a much lower risk. And I think that, yeah, when you look at the royalty space where it is today, there's a pretty big gap between the major royalty companies, you know, the $10 billion plus royalty companies, and the sort of smaller mid-tier sector. And I think that there's a lot more opportunity to grow in that smaller and mid-tier sector that we're in now.
From what you can tell us, what would you say are some of the company's value catalysts now for the rest of this year, moving into 2021?
So I think that we should be able over the coming weeks. We should be getting some independent research, you know, coverage coming out on the company, and I think that will be very helpful in terms of putting a base under our valuation. And when we marketed, we said at the time that it was, yeah, around the 1x net asset value, and I think around the sort of 8 to 10 times revenue multiple for the year. And actually, with the increase in gold price and one of our royalties material increase in production, we're probably not far off that at the moment. And so actually, if you look at us versus the peers, we are, albeit we're a new royalty company to the market, so we've still got a lot of work to do on the awareness and marketing front, but we are, as it stands today, without doing anything else, we're at a pretty big discount to, I think, any of our peers. And that's particularly the case when you consider that we're almost exclusively a company with royalties over producing assets, which typically command a premium. But I think if you look back to what we've done over the last 3 years, with a team of never more than 2 full-time people, and with all the constraints of being a private company and having to raise money and acquire assets at, you know, a discount to net asset value, if you look at what we've been able to build over those couple of years, you know, we're now in a position where we should be able to do a lot better than we did over the last 3 years. And if we can build it into an $80 million Canadian company in 3 years from just an idea, I think, you know, we've got an awful lot of runway ahead of us now for the next 3 years looking forwards.
So with that, where can my audience go and find everything they need to know about Elemental Royalties?
So I think the best place is go to our website, and the presentation's there, and there should be some links to interviews, background, talks that we've done, and that should give a pretty good overview, I think. And obviously, having just listed recently, we're still in the process now of getting a lot more news out there and trying to make sure that when people look at investing in a royalty company, they know we're there. And that's going to be one of the big, I think, as well, drivers for us over the sort of short to medium term is even just raising that awareness levels.
Fair enough. And your website is elementalroyalties.com, correct?
Correct.
Perfect. All right. Well, Frederick, with that, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. Good luck. Stay safe. And I look forward to our next update.
Thanks, Robert. Look forward to when we can see you in Beaver Creek next time.
I'm right here. Here we go. Let's go. So thank you again. My name is Robert Kraft. I'm your host on SNN Network, and we're a proud media sponsor for the upcoming Precious Metal Summit Beaver Creek being held virtually this year. Frederick will be there presenting Elemental Royalties, and thank you all for listening.